In the deepest shadows of Middle-earth, where light fears to tread, lurks a terror older than the memory of men. Shelob, the monstrous spider of Cirith Ungol, is not merely a creature of horror. She is a living remnant of an age when darkness ruled the lands, a shadow that has haunted the paths of the brave and the foolish alike for centuries, yet largely overlooked by history. Before we journey further into the story, if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would help us bring more tales from Arda to life. Now, let's return to the story. To understand Shelob, we must first trace the lineage of darkness from which she emerged. Shelob as a direct descendant of Ungoliant, the primordial spider-like being who allied with Melkor in the first days of Arda. Ungoliant's hunger and malice are woven into the very essence of Shelob, making her not merely a predator, but a creature whose existence is tied to the residual echoes of Morgoth's malefic power. Scholars have noted that Shelob embodies a thematic continuity. She is the shadow of a shadow, a tangible echo of the cosmic forces of darkness that once threatened to engulf the world. By the time of the Third Age, she had claimed a dominion unlike any other. High on the slopes of Cirith Ungol, the pass that bridged Gondor and Mordor, Shelob wove her lair into the cliffs and shadows, striking fear into the hearts of those who dared approach. Her presence was not merely a curiosity or natural hazard. It was a calculated, enduring force that shaped the strategies of armies, the paths of travelers, and the fates of key figures in the War of the Ring. Though Tolkien's narratives offer limited glimpses of her, every reference paints a portrait of patience, cunning, and a terror that is both ancient and intelligent. Yet what makes Shelob remarkable is not just her size or strength, but her strategy. Unlike the open savagery of orcs or the fiery wrath of dragons, Shelob embodies a more subtle horror, a predator that waits, watches, and strikes with devastating precision. She does not chase, she ensnares. She does not roar, she silences. And in this silence, history itself bends around her, as heroes and villains alike are forced to navigate the dark legacy she imposes upon the land. To fully appreciate the menace that Shelob represents, we must look to her origins. Ungoliant's hunger was legendary, her web of darkness stretching across Valinor itself when she aided Melkor in the theft of the two trees. Though Ungoliant vanished into the shadows of legend, her children remained scattered throughout Middle-earth, remnants of a time when the very fabric of the world was young, and the powers of light and darkness clashed in primordial struggle. Shelob, as the final known spawn of this ancient line, embodies both the continuity and the corruption of that original terrifying power. Tolkien provides sparse but telling details about her. In The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, she is described as a great spider, enormous, dark, and shadowy, older than many kingdoms, patient beyond comprehension, and with an intelligence that rivals even the cunning of men and elves. Her hunger is more than mere appetite. It is a force of nature, a perpetual reminder of the deep, unknowable evil that predated Sauron's rise. She lurks where few dare tread, maintaining a dominion that is both literal and symbolic, the threshold between the known world of light and the uncharted darkness of Mordor. Cirith Ungol, the pass where Shelob's lair would eventually dominate, was no accident of geography. Situated high above the valley of Minas Morgul, it is a natural choke point, a gateway for armies, travelers, and those seeking to infiltrate Mordor. The very placement of her lair hints at her ancient cunning. She was not merely a creature of instinct, but a predator with a strategic mind. Shelob's lair, with its twisting tunnels and webs of immense strength, is designed to entrap, confuse, and annihilate. Every strand she spins, every shadow she inhabits, serves the dual purpose of survival and dominion. Scholars of Tolkien have noted the symbolism inherent in Shelob's existence. As the last spawn of Ungoliant, she is a living relic of the First Age's threats. Her survival into the Third Age represents the persistence of older, deeper evils, those that exist outside the immediate ambitions of Sauron or the shifting alliances of men, elves, and dwarves. Shelob is an echo of a time when darkness was primordial, when the very light of the world could be consumed, leaving only void and fear. Shelob's dominion over Cirith Ungol was not imposed overnight. It was the product of centuries of patience, observation, and adaptation. Unlike creatures driven by instinct alone, she studied the patterns of those who traversed the pass, learning when to strike and how to manipulate the terrain to her advantage. Her tunnels were labyrinthine, her webs near invisible in the gloom, and her poison, a paralytic venom that could immobilize the strongest warrior, ensured that no intruder could escape once ensnared. Tolkien's depiction, though brief, emphasizes the intelligence behind her horror. Frodo Baggins' encounter with her in the Two Towers reveals more than mere physical danger. It illustrates her cunning. She senses fear, measures strength, and chooses her victims not randomly, but deliberately, prioritizing those who would feed her or offer a challenge. In this way, Shelob's lair was more than a nest. It was a strategic extension of her will, a tool of both survival and domination. Every web, every shadowed crevice was a calculated element in a predator's design. Her presence also reshaped the geography of fear. The eastern approach to Mordor, once a mere corridor for armies and spies, became a gauntlet that few dared traverse. Orcs, aware of her existence, left offerings to avoid her wrath, while travelers whispered of the monstrous spider that devoured without warning. Even Sauron, whose attention was consumed by the machinations of the Ring and the conquest of Middle-earth, could not claim dominion over her. She existed independently, a sovereign terror whose allegiance was to nothing but her own survival. This independence is crucial to understanding Shelob's role in the Third Age. While Sauron sought to enslave, conquer, and command, Shelob acted outside the bounds of allegiance or morality, adhering only to the laws of predation that had governed her kind since the First Age. In this sense, she is an anachronism, a living relic of a world where darkness was primal, untamed, and absolute. Her existence complicates the narratives of heroes and villains alike, for to face her is not merely to confront a monster, but to confront the legacy of evil itself. Yet there is another layer to her terror. Shelob's patience is emblematic of a wider philosophy of predation. She does not pursue relentlessly, she waits for the perfect moment to strike. In this, she mirrors the subtle dangers that pervade Middle-earth, the hidden threats that often have a greater impact than armies or open warfare. Her very silence shapes decisions, redirects journeys, and, in the case of the Ring-bearer, tests the limits of courage, strategy, and willpower. By the time of the War of the Ring, Shelob's name had become a whispered terror. Orcs and men alike told tales of the monstrous spider in the darkness of Cirith Ungol, a creature whose hunger and cunning could undo even the most seasoned warrior. Yet few truly understood the scale of her threat until Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee, burdened with the weight of the One Ring, encountered her directly. In this moment, Tolkien crystallizes the horror she embodies. Vast, intelligent, and terrifyingly patient, Shelob is not merely an obstacle, but an existential threat to those who challenge her domain. The encounter itself is a study in predator and prey. Frodo, armed only with his courage and a modest blade, ventures into her lair with hope and desperation entwined. Shelob's attacks are calculated, striking with precision and exploiting the weaknesses of her victims. Her webs immobilize, her venom paralyzes, and her gaze alone communicates an intelligence that unnerves even the bravest of hearts. Tolkien's description conveys both physical horror and psychological terror, reminding audiences that in Middle-earth, the deadliest creatures often dwell not in open battlefields, but in the silent, suffocating darkness. Samwise Gamgee's response further illuminates Shelob's nature. Unlike orcs who rely on brute force, or dragons who rely on overwhelming might, Shelob forces her adversaries to confront fear, strategy, and instinct simultaneously. Every move she makes is deliberate, designed not only to feed, but to dominate. The struggle between Sam and Shelob is emblematic of the larger narrative at play. Courage and cleverness must overcome ancient evil that exists beyond conventional understanding. It is a testament to Tolkien's genius that a single encounter can convey centuries of menace, the weight of lineage, and the enduring presence of darkness in Middle-earth. Her influence extends beyond individual encounters. Cirith Ungol, dominated by her presence, became a natural bottleneck that shaped military strategy. Armies feared the pass not only because of terrain or Sauron's influence, but because the shadow of Shelob made the journey perilous. In this sense, she is not merely a lurking predator, but a force that subtly shifted the balance of power. Her existence underscores a central theme in Tolkien's work, that evil is not always direct or overt. Sometimes it is hidden, patient, and enduring, leaving a quiet but profound impact on history. Even the mythology surrounding her speaks to this enduring terror. To elves and men who understood her origins, Shelob was more than a creature. She was the last thread connecting the present to the horrors of the First Age. Ungoliant's legacy, consumed by time and obscured by legend, persisted in her form. Through her, the shadow of an ancient darkness survived, influencing events in ways most characters and readers might never fully realize. Shelob is more than a monster. She is a living symbol of the persistence of ancient evils. While Sauron represents ambition, conquest, and the overt spread of tyranny, Shelob embodies something subtler but equally terrifying: the inevitability of darkness that endures long after the wars of gods and men have ended. She reminds us that some threats cannot be negotiated with, reasoned with, or anticipated. They are primal, eternal, and indifferent to the struggles of those who occupy the surface of history. Tolkien's genius lies in embedding this duality within his world. The great battles of Middle-earth, the wars of the elves, men, and dwarves, the schemes of Sauron and Saruman receive the spotlight. But creatures like Shelob operate in the margins, unseen yet profoundly influential. Her existence suggests that heroism is not measured only against armies and rulers, but also against the subtle, lurking horrors that test courage and resolve in isolation. In this way, she is both a literal and metaphorical obstacle, a force that challenges the very essence of what it means to confront evil. Her symbolic resonance also extends to the concept of legacy. Shelob, as the final spawn of Ungoliant, is a living bridge between the First Age and the Third Age. The malevolence that once threatened the two trees, that challenged the Valar themselves, survives in her, dormant yet lethal, reminding all who encounter her that the past is never truly gone. In Cirith Ungol, history, geography, and fear converge. The pass is a crucible, testing both the physical and moral strength of those who traverse it. Every web spun by Shelob is a thread connecting the contemporary struggles of the Ringbearer to the ancient, almost mythic horrors of Arda's early days. Even within Tolkien's text, the terror she inspires is uniquely personal. Unlike open battlefields where armies confront each other en masse, Shelob's attacks are intimate, immediate, and terrifyingly precise. One wrong step, one misjudged moment, and the consequences are fatal. This intimacy amplifies fear, turning the abstract concept of danger into an immediate, inescapable reality.
Through Frodo and Sam's journey, readers and audiences experience this tension firsthand, understanding that in Middle-earth, the greatest threats are not always the most visible. Shelob's independence further cements her thematic importance. She does not answer to Sauron, nor does she ally with any power seeking dominion. Her existence is self-directed, a force of nature as ancient as the mountains themselves. In a world dominated by political machinations and grand designs, she reminds us that some powers operate on a scale beyond comprehension, unaffected by alliances, loyalty, or ideology. To face her is to confront the raw, indifferent, and timeless aspect of evil, a shadow that lingers long after the deeds of men and gods have faded into memory. The confrontation with Frodo and Sam marks the apex of Shelob's terror in the Third Age. Tolkien crafts this encounter with meticulous attention to suspense, emphasizing the overwhelming disparity between predator and prey. Frodo, the ring-bearer, enters her lair with hope, determination, and the burden of destiny. But none of these gifts can shield him from the ancient cunning of the spider. Every step into the darkness is measured against centuries of Shelob's experience. Every shadow conceals a potential strike. As she attacks, her intelligence becomes terrifyingly evident. Shelob does not merely pursue, she anticipates. She tests her prey, gauging responses, exploiting hesitation. Frodo's struggle is emblematic of the human, or hobbit, response to incomprehensible evil. Courage intertwined with vulnerability, resilience tempered by the ever-present risk of failure. Tolkien's descriptions emphasize not only the physical danger, but the psychological terror, turning the encounter into a microcosm of the greater struggle between light and shadow. Samwise Gamgee's intervention underscores Shelob's singular menace. Unlike ordinary foes, she cannot be outwitted by conventional bravery alone. Strategy, quick thinking, and an understanding of her nature are required. Sam's courage, his ability to act decisively in the face of near-certain death, allows the narrative to highlight a recurring theme in Tolkien's work. Even the smallest and seemingly weakest can confront the greatest darkness when resourcefulness and loyalty guide their actions. Shelob's attack, paralyzing and nearly fatal, transforms the struggle into a study of fear, heroism, and the unpredictable dynamics between predator and prey. What makes this encounter so memorable is that Shelob, even in defeat, undefeated in essence. Her venom is expelled, her webs are disrupted, yet she survives, retreating into the shadows to continue her reign over Cirith Ungol. Tolkien's narrative choice here is deliberate. Shelob is not a foe that can be permanently vanquished. Her threat is enduring, a reminder that evil is rarely eradicated entirely. Her survival ensures that the echoes of the First Age continue to reverberate into the Third, subtly shaping the events of Middle-earth without drawing direct attention. This encounter also illustrates her strategic mastery. Unlike dragons or armies, Shelob's victories are quiet, often invisible to history. She does not conquer lands, raise banners, or command legions. Her dominion is psychological and territorial, rooted in fear, survival, and the patient accumulation of power over centuries. In this way, she is perhaps more formidable than more overtly destructive creatures, because her power persists in silence, unobserved yet profoundly consequential.
Even after the encounter with Frodo and Sam, Shelob's influence did not end. She remained a silent sentinel over Cirith Ungol, her presence shaping the movements of armies, spies, and adventurers long after the ring-bearer had passed through. Tolkien's text implies that her dominion was a constant, a shadow over the eastern approaches to Mordor that could neither be ignored nor fully controlled. Her webs, her tunnels, and her patient hunting ensured that the geography itself became a tool of her terror. Travelers spoke in hushed tones of the monster of Cirith Ungol,
a creature that could strike without warning, whose reach extended far beyond the visible confines of her lair. The subtlety of her power is key to understanding her place in Middle-earth. While Sauron sought to dominate through fear, armies, and the corruption of men and elves, Shelob exerted a more insidious influence. She embodies a primal, enduring evil, a force that shapes events not through ambition, but through existence. Her threat is continuous, persistent, and immune to the victories of those who battle more visible foes. In this way, she becomes a symbol of the latent dangers that exist beyond the scope of history's grand narratives, a reminder that darkness often endures in hidden corners where light rarely reaches. Her survival into the later years of the Third Age reinforces this theme. Shelob is the last living connection to the First Age, a bridge between epochs of history and legend. Ungoliant's legacy, once a direct challenge to the Valar themselves, persists in her form, a lingering presence that evokes both fear and fascination. For Tolkien, such creatures serve multiple purposes. They are narrative obstacles, symbolic representations of ancient evil, and reminders that not all history is written by kings and armies. Some histories are written in webs, shadows, and the silent patience of predators like Shelob. Scholars have often noted the psychological depth she introduces into Tolkien's world. She is not merely a test of physical courage, but of moral fortitude and intellect. Heroes who confront her must grapple with fear, strategy, and the overwhelming sense of being hunted by a force older and more patient than themselves. This confrontation, while brief in the narrative, encapsulates a universal theme: that true courage often manifests not in the glory of battle, but in the quiet, desperate struggle against forces beyond comprehension. Shelob's presence amplifies this lesson, making her a unique and enduring figure in the mythos of Middle-earth. In reflecting on her significance, it becomes clear that Shelob is more than a lurking predator. She is a touchstone of history, a living artifact of the First Age, and a silent architect of fear whose influence subtly shapes the balance of power. Her dominion is both literal and symbolic, her terror both immediate and enduring, and her story a testament to the depth and complexity of Tolkien's creation. Even in her silence, Shelob speaks volumes about the persistence of darkness and the courage required to confront it. When we consider the great terrors of Middle-earth, certain names immediately rise to the surface: Balrogs, dragons, the Dark Lords themselves. Yet Shelob holds a distinct place among them, not because she sought dominion or left behind vast ruins of conquest, but because she revealed the subtler, more insidious face of evil. She is the embodiment of fear that lingers, unspoken, the predator in the shadows who does not seek fame or glory, but whose influence is undeniable. Tolkien positions Shelob as a counterpoint to other forces of darkness. Sauron's ambition is clear, Saruman's betrayal resounds through councils and armies, and Morgoth's rebellion reshaped the world itself. But Shelob's evil is personal. Her danger is intimate, experienced not on battlefields, but in the claustrophobic dark of her lair, where a single misstep means death. She reminds us that Middle-earth is not defined solely by the clash of kingdoms, but also by the hidden dangers that stalk the edges of its stories. Her role in Frodo's journey illustrates this contrast vividly. The Ringbearer's path was threatened not only by armies and traitors, but also by an ancient hunger indifferent to the fate of the world. Shelob cared nothing for Sauron's designs or the destiny of the ring. She sought only to feed. In this way, she represents the indifference of primal evil, a threat that is not ideological but existential. Her presence challenges the characters to confront not just the malice of intelligent foes, but the raw and unreasoning terror of survival itself. And yet, Shelob's defeat is not a triumph in the traditional sense. She is not slain, nor is her reign over Cirith Ungol ended. She retreats, wounded but unbroken, into the darkness that birthed her. Tolkien leaves her fate deliberately unresolved, a reminder that evil of her kind cannot be fully destroyed. It persists in shadows, waits in silence, and emerges when vigilance falters. This unresolved ending amplifies her legacy, ensuring that Shelob remains not just a figure of fear within the narrative, but a lingering presence in the imagination of readers and audiences alike. In many ways, Shelob is a mirror to Ungoliant, whose hunger consumed light itself. Where Ungoliant's legacy was cosmic, Shelob's is personal, grounded in the lived experience of characters who must face her directly. Together, they form a lineage of darkness that spans the history of Arda, connecting the mythic past with the lived present of the War of the Ring. Through Shelob, Tolkien reminds us that the shadows of the past never vanish entirely. They survive, evolve, and endure in unexpected forms. Her story, though confined to a single lair on the mountainside of Mordor, resonates across ages. She is a predator, a relic, a shadow, and a reminder that in Tolkien's world, evil is never fully banished. It hides in the dark, patient and enduring, waiting for the next unwary traveler to stumble into its web. In the vast tapestry of Middle-earth, where kings rise and fall and wars echo across the ages, Shelob endures as a silent testament to the persistence of darkness. She is not remembered in songs or chronicles, no monuments are raised in her name. Yet her shadow remains, woven into the fabric of the land, a reminder that even in a world of valor and hope, there are corners where fear still reigns. Her legacy is not one of conquest, but of survival. She outlasted the kingdoms of elves and men, bore witness to the passing of ages, and remained untouched by the ambitions of dark lords. While others sought glory or dominion, Shelob simply endured, her webs spanning not only her lair, but also the hidden threads of history. Tolkien presents her not as an anomaly, but an inevitability. In every age, there are shadows that cannot be dispelled entirely, evils that retreat rather than vanish, predators that wait rather than pursue. Shelob embodies this truth. Her story is a warning and a lesson that courage is often tested not by the enemies we see, but by the terrors we can scarcely name. And so, as we reflect on the journey through her origins, her dominion, and her confrontation with the Ringbearer, we recognize that Shelob is more than a creature. She is a symbol of fear, timeless, enduring, and always waiting in the dark. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.